I'm licensed Mass, Maine, and New Hampshire, and then my company is nationwide. I can help clients nationwide. And one of my favorite things to do is really to focus on the client that we're working with and their specific situation. Because, especially at CrossCountry, we have available to us so many options. And if we don't have it in-house, we can broker it. Because you'll hear pre-qual versus pre-approved versus fully underwritten. It's like, what are those differences, right?
Art Durkin here with the Art of the Sale Realty Group, and I'm here with Maggie Eck from CrossCountry Mortgage, and we're here to talk about a little bit about displaying some myths about real estate lending, and how we can better help our clients in that process. So, tell me a little bit more about you, Maggie, and what you'd like to tell our audience.
Well, first, thanks so much for having me. And your audience already knows how great you are, but working with you and your team, Shelly, it's fantastic. So I got to start there. Thank you, of course. But just senior loan officer, CrossCountry Mortgage. I've been in the banking industry, over 25 years. Mortgages since 2018, but really been doing mortgages and HELOCs in all my banking years as well.
Great.
And just very passionate about helping people find the right solutions. Yeah.
I guess my first question would be to you is tell me some lending considerations that clients don't really anticipate when they're getting into the home buying process.
Yeah. I mean, like you said at the beginning, is myths, right? There's a lot of people assume, or their friends or family are telling them things. Plus, lending has changed over the years. Even in my time during banking, lending has changed a lot. But then our parents' years, the big myth is you need 20% down, right? I hear that a lot, and you really don't. And some financial advisors too, might rather see you use that money for some other investing or beefing up your retirement, versus putting it down. So there's lots of ways to go about that down payment, and you do not necessarily need 20%. We've got great down payment assistance programs. I'm licensed Mass, Maine, and New Hampshire, and then my company is nationwide. I can help clients nationwide. But, depending on what state you're in, there's state housing, so Mass housing, New Hampshire housing programs. We also have CrossCountry has our own down payment assistance programs. Or even if you just have the 20%, but sometimes, believe it or not, sometimes the rate's better with 15% down instead. So little tricks like that,
okay,
we can come up with a solution for you.
Perfect. Tell me a little bit about how life transitions can affect borrowing power.
Man, yeah, life is crazy, right? Everybody's situation is different. As a loan officer, and one of my favorite things to do is really to focus on the client that we're working with and their specific situation. And then, because especially at CrossCountry, we have available to us so many options, and if we don't have it in-house, we can broker it. So really tailoring the right solution to the client. So really any transition in life we can help with. But if you're someone who's retiring, right now, a lot of our clients in New England, especially, you've got, those boomers a lot of their money is in their house, right? So how do I downsize, buy without selling, but oh gosh, all my money is in my house and I need those proceeds to buy. So, we might look at a bridge loan, or we might look at a home equity line of credit, or maybe for certain clients, a reverse mortgage is appropriate. But that's that senior client. But then you also have that newly engaged couple that is getting married, and they have a lot of funds from the wedding, they want to put together, or maybe they look at houses before they're actually married. So advising on what does that purchase look like, pulling those funds together before they're married, and making sure that they're having a conversation with the title attorney about title and versus when they are married, right? So, advising that transition as well.
All right. Yeah. So you talk about timing. When is it a good time to talk to a lender in the process? And one thing the client should think about when they're applying for a loan.
Yeah. Well, the timing, you cannot start the conversation soon enough. Like, even if you're like, oh, I'm not going to buy for 2 years, so I shouldn't talk to Maggie yet. Coming up with a plan is important. Question I get a lot is, well, I don't want it to affect my credit, and I always start with a soft credit pull. We have that luxury at CrossCountry where we don't have to do a hard credit pull for pre-approval. And it is really helpful because sometimes that's like the biggest, like, oh, okay, I don't have to have my credit impacted to start this process and just talk, right? And so talking sooner and getting a look with the soft credit pull at how's your credit history, how's your income. We don't want any surprises, right? So the sooner we can look at it, the more we can pivot if there is a challenge, right? I always tell people, if I'm pre-approving them and maybe it's not working, or at least not for the home they want, I don't say no. I say, okay, not now, but here's the plan. So that if we have a year, we can actually put the right things in place for either improving credit, saving funds. Maybe it's a job history piece that we need to work on. Or maybe they're ready and they didn't realize it. And that's a great thing, because in this market right now, before spring comes and before rates go down and all those people are out of the woodwork, if someone could buy now, and I know you're telling your clients this too, we want them to buy now. And so maybe they are ready and they just need that boost of confidence.
Yeah. One of the things we're finding is that if they're looking now, which is currently we're in February, that's actually when the spring market starts, right? So finding out now before the competition really jumps into the game of in March and April, when there'll be likely more properties on the market, but also more buyers.
Also more buyers. Yep. So Shire's calling.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I agree that getting ready now, or like somebody will say, my lease is up in September,
So I don't want to look.
so I shouldn't talk to anyone now. No, now would actually be the perfect time
Right.
to talk and get you ready for September.
Yeah, great. How is coordinated planning helping clients avoid delays?
Delays with closing and such. Yeah,
Right.
I'm a huge fan of building the best team. So realtor, like I love working with you, and attorney. Building that great team will help you stay on track with the milestones, as I call them, for the closing process. So from your pre-approval, to getting under contract, to meeting that, the appraisal, the finance commitment, and closing date, those are all really important dates. And if you're not ahead of them or have a good team that's talking during the process, next thing you know, that finance commitment date can really sneak up on you and put your client's deposit at jeopardy. So making sure that you're spelling out the process for the client so that they have a good expectation is huge. The other thing that we do well at CrossCountry, and that I'm a big fan of, is getting my clients fast tracks, what we call it. So a fully underwritten pre-approval. I can't stress that enough. I think my last, handful of deals, I've won it because of the fast track. It's gotten to the point where a lot of times people, listing agents and sellers, are starting to expect it. But what that means is the difference between, if you don't mind, just a little explanation.
Sure.
Because you'll hear pre-qual versus pre-approved versus fully underwritten. It's like, what are those differences, right? And really simply is a pre-qualification just means you typed in some information and a computer trusts in what you told it. It spit out, an approval. So you told it you make 10 grand a month and you have $100,000 to put down, and it based it on that. And here's your pre-approval. A pre-approval is a loan officer like myself has taken your application, but then also looked at all the documentation to support that income. So you might have put 10,000, but actually you make 9,600, right? Or maybe you make 10,300, and those make a difference. So the loan officer is looking at those pay stubs and W-2s and asset statements and making sure everything you put in there is true. Now that next level, fully underwritten pre-approval, we actually submit the file to an underwriter with a TBD, to be determined address, and have an underwriter fully look at it and put their stamp of approval on, just like they will when you're under contract. And the benefit of that is if we can have the underwriter having looked at income and assets early on, part of this underwritten pre-approval, when you are live and you do get your accepted offer, because you will, all we need to do is plug in the address, order the appraisal and the title, work with the title company, and we're closing. We can close as fast as 10 days on those.
Wow.
And so that's a commitment CrossCountry has, which is one reason why I choose to, work through CrossCountry from my loans.
Yeah, that's great. Super. Can you share with us a little story, perhaps, about a certain situation, things like a self-employed borrower, a divorce, or a multi-property scenario? Can you share anything about any of those kind of stories that you might help our clients understand?
Sure. I mean, those unique situations are something I like to solve problems, Arch, right? As you know. And I tag my office, say, what the heck, just call it Maggie Eck, because oftentimes I'll be able to find them. But I had a client recently going through a divorce, and she owned an investment property. So she was keeping that property and purchasing the new, but the equity buyout from her spouse wasn't going to come in time for her to make the initial deposits on the home, right? On the new home. And she really needed the access to those cash. But we actually have a program that will do a home equity line on an investment property, which is most banks won't do that. And it's a fast program that we're able to get cash in 14 days. And so we were able to pull what she needed out of the investment property to use for her deposit for the new property, right? And then by the time she was closing, her equity buyout from her ex was received. So then those funds were used for the full down payment and closing, and she was able to pay back that investment property HELOC with the proceeds from her divorce. So just that timing and planning, like you were talking about, allowed us to make an offer on a home that was empty. They wanted to close fast. Well, she wouldn't have been able to do that if we weren't leveraging the investment property and close quickly like that. So
that's awesome. That's awesome. That's a great scenario.
A small business is something else specialize in. So you have business clients who you have a good CPA, you write everything off. Nobody wants to pay taxes, right? Mm-hmm. So if you write everything off on your taxes, next thing you know, I had a client one time, she had owned multiple retail businesses, and on paper, it looked like she made like $6,000 a month.
That's nothing.
Right. But we have a bank statement program where we actually base the income instead of, we don't even look at tax returns. We look at the deposits coming into the business and then take a calculation based on how many employees they have. But let's just keep it simple. We can use 50% of that. So in her case, she had about $60,000 coming into the business every month. And we used $30,000 for her monthly income. So we went from $6,000 monthly income, which was only going to buy her, maybe a $400,000 home. And now she bought $1 million.
Five-fold.
Yeah. And so, being able to use different programs to really help people who feel like they would never, ever be able to qualify, actually reach their dream, their home ownership dreams that's where the magic is, right?
That's perfect. So tell me a little bit more about, we've done a few of divorce cases together, and tell me a little bit more about your certification and how you set yourself apart from other lenders in this community.
Yeah. So a great financial advisor of mine a couple years ago asked me to get a certification, a certified divorce lending professional. And I said, okay, I'll look into it. I thought it'd just be another, just a little sticker on the name. And come to find out, so through an association, Divorce Lending Association, they do this certification, a CDLP. And so I did their program, and man, did I learn so much. I thought I've been helping people through divorce for years and years and didn't really realize how much more additional, knowledge I needed. And now I just love it. But really the point of it is to help make sure that as a lending professional, when I'm working with attorneys and mediators and divorce coaches and certified financial analysts, divorce analysts, that we're all talking the same language and we really know the divorce process, and with our realtors that are divorce, specialized, so that everyone's talking the same language, knows those time frames for the divorce. And now, I dive in, do a full report for my clients on the divorce piece, figuring out, can they buy the X out? Do they need to buy the new home? What does that look like? Should they use a home equity or a refinance, or maybe a forego of some retirement funds to buy out an equity of their ex? So I really enjoy helping people through that process.
Yeah, so you're a true problem solver.
Yeah,
regard
it's not a fun process in general, so if we can make anything less painful.
Sure, make it smooth.
Yeah. So a CDLP, Certified Divorce Lending Professional.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Maggie. I appreciate you joining with us today.
Thanks, Art.
And if there's ever anything that you need as far as lending goes, I would encourage you to reach out to Maggie Eck from CrossCountry Mortgage, a phenomenal professional, and couldn't recommend you more. So thank you so much.
Thanks, Art. I appreciate it. Thanks so much.